The morning air was still, heavy. Moved through it like a ghost, his mind elsewhere, the encrypted message still burning in his pocket. He reached the end of the wing and scanned his badge. The biometric lock clicked open. Inside was his sanctuary, his office. Clean, sterile, impenetrable. Isaiah shut the door behind him and lowered the blinds. Then from the locked bottom drawer of his desk, he retrieved a slim black case, untouched for years. It opened with a soft click. Inside was a secure flash drive marked with a faded white symbol, Delta 13. He hadn't seen it in over a decade. He plugged it into his laptop. A cold blue screen blinked awake. No OS, no interface, just lines of code and a single terminal prompt. He took a breath. Echo protocol, Col Delta 4. The terminal responded instantly. What unfolded on the screen was a digital autopsy of secrets, surveillance footage, psychiatric evaluations, redacted field reports, dates, locations, names, and behind them a world Isaiah had buried under years of white coats and clinical diagnoses. At the center of it all, years ago, before he was Dr. Isaiah Cole, he had a different name, a code name. He was part of an off-the-record behavioral research unit contracted by a covert branch of the federal government. Their work, experimenting with the use of trauma-induced psychological conditioning in detained black civilians under the guise of criminal psychiatric care. Isaiah thought he was helping, until he realized the truth, until he ran. He leaned back in his chair as the footage flickered. A young boy screaming in a padded cell, a forced injection, two agents watching behind mirrored glass. His hand trembled. That boy's name was Malik Ford, the same name attached to the text on his phone. Malik wasn't just alive, he remembered, and now Isaiah had to face the one truth he couldn't outrun. He wasn't just a witness, he was a weapon. Outside, the city lights flickered on. Inside, Isaiah closed the file. Tonight, he'd meet the ghost of the boy he Surveillance footage from Facility 13, the underground site where Project Echo was headquartered. In the still image, a younger Isaiah stood behind mirrored glass, observing as agents restrained Malik to a gurney. "You see that?" Malik said, thrusting the photo into Isaiah's chest. "You didn't try hard enough." There was venom in Malik's words, but there was pain too, raw and unfiltered. "I used to think I was crazy," Malik continued, stepping back, "until I found the files, found the others. There are more of us, kids from East Baltimore, the South Side, New Orleans, pulled into clinics, labeled unstable, and thrown into that hole you helped build." Isaiah felt it then, the past pressing down like a collapsing ceiling. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Malik's eyes narrowed. "I want you to help expose them. Everything. The experiments, the agents, Facility 13. You're the last piece. You know how the system works, and you owe us that much." Isaiah didn't answer right away because he knew what this meant. Helping Malik meant stepping out of the safety of his false identity. It meant betraying former allies, reopening wounds, and putting everything, his career, his freedom, his life, on the line. But then he looked at the boy again, not just at the pain he wore, but the defiance in his spine, the fire in his stare. It wasn't revenge Malik wanted, it was justice, for himself, for all of them. Isaiah nodded, voice low but steady. "Tell me where to start." Malik gave a ghost of a smile. "We go underground." And just like that, the doctor and the ghost disappeared into the alley, two broken souls bound by one buried truth, ready to dig it up. There are places in Baltimore that don't exist on any map. Beneath the cracked sidewalks, below the rusted subway lines and drainage tunnels, lies a network of forgotten passages, utility corridors, Cold War bunkers, basements sealed off since the 60s. It's where the city's secrets are buried, and it's where Malik led Isaiah now. Their descent began through a condemned laundromat on North Avenue. The windows were boarded, and a "no trespassing" sign dangled half-torn, flapping in the breeze like a warning no one cared to enforce. Malik jimmied open a rusted steel hatch beneath a washing machine that hadn't run in decades. Below, the darkness swallowed them whole. The walls were wet with condensation. The air was thick with mildew and silence. Isaiah followed Malik by flashlight, boots echoing against the grime-coated tiles. The smell of rot and rust clung to every breath. This wasn't just urban decay. This was deliberate abandonment. "We call this the basement," Malik said as they moved deeper. "It's where the kids who didn't make it up top ended up. Ones they couldn't fix, couldn't control." Isaiah paused, his voice hushed. "Fix?" Malik turned. "You know what I mean. Behavioral modification, trauma induction, neurological reprogramming. That's what Echo was after, right? Not just studying black minds, but reshaping them." Isaiah's gut twisted. He remembered the medical memos, the cold language of power, cognitive pliability, compliance enhancement, emotional dampening. Words that once lived on paper now echoed in tunnels like ghosts. They stopped before a rusted steel door with a painted number, B27. Malik knocked 3 times. A slot opened. "Password," came a voice from within. Malik answered without hesitation. "Fire survives water." The door creaked open. Inside, a makeshift command center buzzed with quiet urgency. Laptops hummed atop folding tables. Handwritten files were stacked in milk crates. On one wall, a giant corkboard displayed a sprawling web of string and photographs, faces of children, faded newspaper clippings, classified schematics, and red X's over the ones who were gone. There were others there, Isaiah nodded slowly. He stepped forward, eyes scanning the wall of secrets. One name stood out among the photos: Dr. Calvin Rusk, the man who had once been his mentor, the man who had made Echo possible. Isaiah's jaw clenched. "Start a new board," he said. "We take down Rusk first." And just like that, the doctor became something else. Not a savior, not a martyr, but a man finally brave enough to confront the monster he helped create. Rain fell like static against the windows of the high-rise tower. The glass glimmered with reflections of city lights, Baltimore below, oblivious to the storm brewing above it. In a penthouse suite, sealed tight by security systems and biometric locks, Dr. Calvin Rusk poured a glass of 30-year scotch and watched the thunder roll across the harbor. He looked every bit the part of a man untouched by consequence. Grey hair cut with precision, tailored suit, watch that cost more than a teacher's annual salary. But behind the eyes was a storm of its own, cold calculation and old guilt buried beneath layers of practiced indifference. He'd read the memo this morning. Dr. Isaiah Cole has surfaced. That name had been buried, filed away under decommissioned assets. It should have stayed there. Rusk took a slow sip. He remembered the last time he saw Isaiah storming out of a Pentagon conference room, files in hand, fire in his voice. Rusk had tried to warn him. "You're not saving them, Isaiah. You're abandoning them. They'll go on without you." And they did. Echo never stopped. It just changed its name. Repackaged, privatized, hidden behind think tanks and shell companies. The work continued, with or without Isaiah. But if he's resurfaced now, he could expose everything. Rusk turned from the window where the skyline stared back like a jury. He walked to a concealed panel. North Avenue, Isaiah sat across from Malik, diagrams spread between them. They were charting a timeline, mapping every major milestone of Project Echo from memory, from stolen documents, from raw emotion. Isaiah's hands trembled as he wrote. Dates lined up with disappearances, medical logs overlapped with school records. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. Kara walked over, holding a weathered envelope. "You need to see this." She slid it onto the table. Inside, a photograph, faded, bent at the corners. It showed a group of children in hospital gowns, 6 of them, smiling faintly under flickering fluorescent lights. A man stood at the edge of the frame, half obscured. Isaiah froze. It was him. Not Rusk.
Him. I don't remember this, Isaiah whispered.
Malik leaned in. That's because they didn't want you to. Beneath the photo was a second item, a microcassette labeled in red ink. Session 43, Subject 6, COLE, Emergency Override. Malik looked Isaiah dead in the eyes. They didn't just use you to study us, they studied you too. And for the first time, the past didn't just haunt Isaiah. It pulled him back in. Darkness hummed in the hidden chamber like a second skin. The microcassette clicked into the old player with a metallic thunk. Dust motes danced in the shaft of dim light overhead as Isaiah, Kara, and Malik leaned close. The room fell into a hush, no breathing, no movement, just the fragile anticipation of memory about to return. A distorted voice crackled to life. Session 43, Subject 6, Emergency Override initiated due to breach in cognitive perimeter. Begin deep dive regression. Initiate theta resonance, now. A low frequency hum filled the tape. Then a voice, raw, young. In a windowless tactical van parked 3 blocks away, Theta 9 watched the screen flicker with grainy thermal footage. The van hummed with surveillance tech, audio taps, electromagnetic resonance mappers, heartbeat sensors. The man in the chair was lean, all muscle and nerve, eyes hidden behind black lenses. He watched Isaiah on the monitor like a lion watching an old rival. Dr. Cole's heart rate just spiked. Something triggered him. Should we move in? No, Theta 9 said flatly. We wait. He'll lead us to the others. Then we remove all of them in one sweep. He reached for his wristcom and tapped in a silent code. Operation Requiem is green. Far below the surface of Baltimore, the past was reawakening. But above it, in the quiet, clinical world of men like Rusk and shadows like Theta 9, the final act was already being written. Baltimore's underbelly was a map of forgotten war zones, tunnels, bunkers, failed subways carved into the bedrock of America's ambition. Here, in the cold silence between past and present, Isaiah stood face to face with a revelation that shattered the remaining pieces of his identity. The binder Malik handed him wasn't just a file. It was a confession. Inside were documents stamped Black Vault, Classified, Harbinger Protocol, all tied to the same signature. Dr. Isaiah Cole. "This can't be right," Isaiah whispered, flipping through the brittle pages. "These records say I developed the Harbinger serum, but I never—" Kara stepped forward, her voice razor-sharp. "You didn't remember because they didn't want you to. They erased it, just like they erased you." Malik circled a date on the last page, June 3rd, 2012. "The day Echo went dark, the day you disappeared." Isaiah stared at it, his jaw clenched. That was the day the facility was shut down, the day dozens of test subjects were reported lost in fire, and the day he was last seen on any surveillance grid. He hadn't just witnessed the end of Echo, he had caused it. The halls burned around him, flames licked the walls, alarms screaming. Inside the lab, vials shattered and shadows collapsed. Isaiah stood at the center, injecting himself with a final prototype, Harbinger, a compound not just designed to expand neural cognition, but to awaken latent memories buried beneath trauma. A fail-safe. A sacrificial move to destroy Echo from within. But it hadn't worked. It had fractured his mind, wiped out years, and turned him into a ghost of his former self. He didn't flee Echo that day. He was extracted. Atop a sleek government skyscraper in a suite lined with reflective glass and no paper trails, Senator Elijah Rusk stood before a digital display projecting Isaiah's image. Beside him, Theta 9 adjusted a tactical harness with quiet precision. "He remembers," Theta 9 said flatly. Rusk didn't flinch. He sipped his bourbon, watching Isaiah like one might observe a puzzle, missing its final piece. "Then it's time. Harbinger cannot be allowed to resurface." "Orders?" "Bring him in alive, if possible." Rusk turned back to the glass. His reflection merged with the skyline. "And if not, erase him? Again?" That night, Kara hacked into a dormant Echo server buried behind layers of military encryption. The files were cold, unindexed, fragmented. But one thing stood out: video footage. She played it on the rusted projector in the bunker. Grainy black and white, a young black boy, 8 years old, strapped to a gurney. Eyes wide. Heart monitor racing. Electrodes across his temples. Subject 6, alias Isaiah Cole, a voice from behind the camera. "Begin memory grafting, Harbinger cycle, phase 1. Isaiah backed away from the screen. "That's not me," he choked. "That can't be—" But it was. Before the white coat. Before the accolades. Before the mission. He wasn't recruited by Echo. He was born in it. The truth hit like an avalanche. He wasn't just a whistleblower, a survivor, or a genius scientist. He was the original template, the first successful test of memory implantation. Everything he had become, every belief, every identity, might have been a script written in someone else's hand. Malik grabbed his shoulder. "You can still fight this. You can still bring it all down." Isaiah looked up, tears welling in his eyes, not just from pain, but from the rage of a man robbed of his own soul. "Then we fight it together, but no more running." Outside the bunker, the sky split with thunder. In the van, Theta 9 loaded his weapon. Inside the system, the Harbinger protocol blinked back to life. The game wasn't about escaping Echo anymore. It was about destroying the idea of Echo, every experiment, every file, every name tied to its monstrous genesis. Baltimore wasn't just where Isaiah's story had been erased, It was where it would now be written in blood and fire. Word had spread through encrypted channels. The original Harbinger subject was alive and ready to expose everything. What Isaiah didn't expect was how many others were also ready to fight. They came from shadows, veterans, former analysts, survivors of Echo's civilian trials. They had no official names, only code names, scars, and reasons. Each bore their own trauma, their own erased truths. They weren't a militia, they were a reckoning. Malik called them the He grabbed the neural tether connecting Omega to the Harbinger core. You want to be me? Isaiah stepped back. Free at last. And Echo,
Echo had fallen.